clicked on you. Well, hello. I am your host Onvermel, as you well aware of, and this again, once again, is the T.O.A Podcast. First of all, let me say it feels kind of weird because just the way that we did the recording for the last one, this one, there's only like 2 days apart, which is it feels really weird. So we were late on one and we're early on another, but that's also because of the long weekend. So I mean, it won't matter to you guys; it'll still be out on Tuesday. But for me, it's messing with my brain a little bit. But I would like to say welcome. To my right today, I have Zacta. Zacta would like to say hi to the half a dozen people, or to a dozen, depending when this is.
Hello, folks.
And to my left, I have Ek. Ek, would you like to say hi to people?
Good day, mate.
Something sounds different. I don't know, maybe I got something
Yeah.
clogged in my ear. But
Maybe I put my
so,
finger.
gentlemen, what I have for you today, what I like to discuss.
There was no warning.
No warning. In fact, I don't usually give you guys warning anymore. I just kind of splurt it out, or I'll tell you right before.
It works better that way.
Well, the thing is, if I tell you ahead of time, then we talk about it, and then we have nothing left to say at the podcast. So it's best.
It's true.
So it's best to not tell them.
Do we talk about it? I think they tell us and we just bottle up ideas as we think.
Well, every time we bring up any conversation, we just go through a bunch and then be like, well, it might be less for the podcast, or it'll be less, on the fly, and less. It'll be more drawl, I think, if we knew what we were talking about like more ahead of time. But speaking of I do want to talk about today, still in the Bionicle mood, so I thought it'd be fun to just talk about the history of our Bionicle mocs and the different necessarily maybe eras or just different influences we had, because honestly, looking at what we built today and why we built it is exceedingly different what it was like back when we first started building Bionicle mocs. And back then it wasn't mocs. Oh no, it was Bionicle made-ups. Basically where you'd break all your sets and then make a whole bunch of other new characters. And then you'd build your sets again. This was a cycle.
And they were about as complicated as an average set, too.
Eventually we started getting a little more complicated.
Or less complicated more often than not.
True. Actually, to be honest, by the time that we actually started getting extra parts, when we got extra parts, we weren't very complicated for a while. And actually, as what Zach had just said, Titans eluded us because what we used to do, because we weren't smart enough to make our own large figures, we would just basically recolor sets to make large characters.
Limb swaps.
Limb swaps, recolors, at least for bigger ones, that was very common.
Who knew Galador inspired us so?
Oh gosh, that hurts a little bit. It hurts a little bit. But back in the old days, you would just build, typically the general goal. The earliest days, I don't exactly remember what we did, but I do remember very common was you maybe build a T.O.A team or something and then you build an army of bad guys. Typically, what it was. Now I do remember specifically the oldest mocs. Generally, the most complicated mocs we get is like how monochrome color can I make a character? Because early Bionicle waves, you weren't really able to do that. So as years gone on, he's like, oh, I finally know how black, red limbs for these red sockets. You can make someone fully red. And that was that was the challenge.
Ah, yes. The T.O.A color. The Shadow Borok. I'm sure there's more.
Well, both of them, and even the...
Don't forget about the Super T.O.A Nuva.
Okay.
Ah, yes, the Super T.O.A
Oh.
Nova. Super T.O.A.
Oh, basically, what's more powerful than a T.O.A Nuva? A Super T.O.A Nuva.
A Super Nuva T.O.A.
Which, what, I actually didn't mind the concept of it. Lego totally ripped our idea with the Fantoko, I think. To get more powerful, and they ripped off our idea.
But they put way too much silver in it.
Well, the Super T.O.A Nuva had silver. They had silver on their masks? Because they had the Metronumatorn?
Vaguely.
Here, I'll paint you a picture of what the Super T.O.A Nuva were. Picture the T.O.A Nuva, except they all have good posture, and they all have the Metronumatorn masks. And basically, maybe it's like different limb. I don't know what they all had for weapons.
Just picture the Metronumatorn as T.O.A Nuva, and there you have them. Their weapons were basically the T.O.A Nuva weapons. At least as far as Liwa, Tahu, and Kopaka. I don't know about the other three.
Yeah, but you have to remember, Kopaka used to have a 6x6 shield. When he became a Nuva, he had an 8x8 shield. And then when he became a Super T.O.A Nuva, he had a 10x10 shield.
Well, I think we may have added Borok hands on their weapons.
Maybe for Bohadu.
That does... I know the T.O.A Shorty had
Yes.
Borak weapons.
We had 3 brown on one.
I can imagine Tahu Nuva swords with the Tanok hands on
Right,
it.
yes.
I think you might be right.
I probably have confirmation of this somewhere, but yes, I remember putting green Borak hands on Tahu Nuva swords for Liwa Nuva. I don't know why.
Because it was cool, man. It made it cool, dude.
Because Liwa's swords are too skinny to go with the Levac hands, whereas the Tahu swords are a bit more girthy and wider, so they worked better with Borak hands.
Yeah, that was a very interesting made ups back then. Those weren't even the oldest though. That was just a single phase that very much Zacta stars. That was a Zacta phase.
The oldest I can
But-
honestly remember was the T.O.A. The oldest creation I honestly remember making was the T.O.A. Shorties, when I had like one Borak, maybe two to three T.O.A. Mata, and a Taraga.
Yeah, that sounds right. For me, I don't really remember anything like that old but the oldest I can remember is essentially making like the 6, which were monochrome colored big bad guys. Very much at the same time era of making single colored T.O.A, like monochrome colored T.O.A. But even then, it was like, I know I built a big bad. I mean, I think they were also roughly the same time as the Super T.O.A Nuva, but
I didn't build as many lasting characters as these guys did, because I don't really remember any that I did.
okay. See, that was the next stage essentially after the coloring, basically making people single colored was kind of a phase. We actually started making slightly more interesting people, not by much, because that's when I built a character that I refer to as Chains, which you'll see on screen his original version, which was blue and yellow, because I actually have a picture of this, but he's actually a character that I've rebuilt in more modern times, as you can see on screen. And I also built his jailer, who I later named Heraclic, which I do not have a picture of his original model, but I pictured the one that you see on screen. Actually, no, I got a better way. Picture Kreka with a different head that's a little bit lower in the chest, and you basically got it. Because, like I said, I didn't make my own big figures. I just repurposed people's bodies. So,
Especially if they didn't have a whole lot of useful parts. Because in our earlier days, when Titans were beyond our grasp, a lot of Technic-based parts were very useless. Of course, now they're the most sought-after parts and creations.
that's because we didn't know how to use Technic and Bionicle at all. We had no idea.
They weren't Bionicle pods, they were Technic pods. You don't use those in a Bionicle mock.
Also, we also didn't have that much small Technic pieces, to be honest, like little intricate stuff for the most part.
We didn't exactly have a lot of Titans back in the day.
No,
Speak for
not
yourself.
really.
I am speaking for myself!
I'm not speaking for him, but so that was the that this area at least was building Chains and Heraclic, and I think that was roughly the same time. Well, you built what's that guy's name? Stelvex, which is basically from these 3 characters, Stelvex, Heraclic, and Chains, were actually all from the same kind of game we had as kids, which I know Chains had 2 incarnations, but I think Stelvex was during the second incarnation, if I'm correct.
I think I made him twice, to be honest.
I mean, it's highly possible. It's hard. A lot of this muddles together. But Stelvex, you also remade, which
Yes.
I'm gonna have to probably get these pictures sent from
I
you.
have pictures.
So lucky enough, I have more time to get these pictures because I'm doing this podcast early. So
Just give me a reminder on
Just
the weekend.
peruse through my old bookshelf to find some of my earliest mocks.
I definitely say when I started trying to make more interesting mocks, I had less purpose. The one that comes to mind that didn't have I wasn't breaking my whole collection to build this. Actually, I think I probably did, but I wasn't building a giant army. I wanted to build a dragon. And so I built a dragon, which I took many pictures of because I was really proud of this dragon. You know what? The dragon may not be the greatest mock, but I still like it today that I even remade a dragon later. Still not the greatest. I'd like to redo it, but I actually I built, characters in a dragon that really wasn't the same. I actually was trying to make something big is impressive, and you know what? My original one, it was actually color coordinated. I'll grant it that.
To toot my own horn here, but when we had the started actually getting larger quantities of bunch of parts, was I the first one to make and successfully design a larger Bionicle with Venom?
I believe so, because after we basically cancellation of Bionicle Gen 1 was roughly the same time, not a little before we roughly the same time is when we first started getting just loose Bionicle lots in bunch pieces.
Because we wouldn't take apart our sets, because that's our collection.
Well, we did. But
Well, even with we also just liked the characters and we were still playing with them, so we still had uses for them. So there was a little bit of overlap between those, but at this point we know we had just extra parts and we're like, well, I guess we can actually just build our own characters. And Zacta basically built a character Venom, which I do believe he was like the first like Titan size mock that we really had, because as far as I'm aware of, the largest character I had at that point was Zakurok, and that was before he was a Titan size. Like I might have stretched his body like 2 studs at that point, but as far as I'm aware of, yeah, Venom was the first official Titan mock, and you know what? You haven't changed him that terribly much, and he still holds up.
His legs are definitely nowhere near the original look because they had hockey bodies. He didn't really have much for knees, but he is surprisingly held up phenomenally. Like, I haven't been able to match his aesthetic, and he really is just like top notch in my opinion, which is odd because I had not been able to match that for quite some time.
See, another funny thing is, once we start getting lots of Bionicle parts, and just lots of them, what do? We make just a giant army again. For a while, that was always a fallback. You had a lot of parts, and you didn't know what to do with it. You built an army. However, shortly after that is where things changed. Because it's roughly the same time you built Venom, is when we decided to start building our own made-up T.O.A teams.
Venom was the leftover
So,
green parts.
I actually built a couple. Like, I built one T.O.A before this was a thing. And that T.O.A went from being a T.O.A of Sonic to water to lightning back to water. Went from being a boy to a girl. The mask never changed though. And for a long time, he didn't even have a name. Eventually, I've settled on a T.O.A water named Emla, and I might actually have to take a picture of her to show what she looks like nowadays. But essentially, she was just a part swap of like a T.O.A Nuva build. Generic body, limbs, the works. And we had, that was the show. And we basically had this extravagant final one last hurrah kind of game. And we started building basically other T.O.A team. Well, the details. We started building, other T.O.A teams. Like I built a T.O.A of Gravity, Onvermel, which this is where Onvermel started. I built Emla, and then I was like, we were going to do something with all our real T.O.A, and I was like, I kind of want to make a couple other T.O.A because I was like, a purple mask. I can make a T.O.A of Gravity. I can make a purple T.O.A. So I built Onvermel, which at this point in time was called Onu Purple.
Crikey, that's bad.
Well, it was Onua, Onipu, and Purple smushed together. So it was Onu Purple. I built Exalix amongst them. Like, we actually, between me and between me and Ek, we actually had like a full T.O.A team. But then this wasn't really a thing though. But when Zactaz started making T.O.A, that's when the whole T.O.A craze kicked in. Like, yeah, I may have been the I'm going to be a hipster here saying I did it before it was cool, like a hipster. But Zacta very much mainstreamed it.
I own making T.O.A.
So basically, I was like, I didn't even have a full T.O.A team. Me and Ek shared a T.O.A team, which, interesting enough, this was also the same time that the T.O.A Hanatu was created, which sometimes is basically Ek's basically self mock. You could call him Hanatu and it would work.
Funny enough, we both have our own copies of this T.O.A team now.
Yes, because I basically made more advanced mocks, but we still kind of like the original mocks.
I've kind of got those versions now.
Kind of, you do have those versions.
That's right, I do have the original versions with some few minor tweaks here and
You
there.
have the original
Mostly in the
leg.
ball necks. Yes, he has the original black painted legs from the original Onvermel mock. Actually, Onu Purple mock. But essentially, when Zactaz started building T.O.A, well then it's like, then shortly after Ek built his T.O.A team. Now the interesting thing about this point, we all had different styles of T.O.A. I had the T.O.A Mata builds. Zactaz had the T.O.A Metro builds, and then Ek had essentially the Inika builds.
Those T.O.A really have not changed much over the years.
I feel like they've changed more than we think, but nothing like drastic. Has always been like a little thing here. Well, the T.O.A
A couple of them, I'd say the Sonic T.O.A has changed the least.
that's probably true. But they're clean, solid, like simple mocks on their own, right? So, but I would say when we started building our own T.O.A was very much a turning point, because this is when this is when we stopped building just giant armies of stuff and just random schmooks and started actually building characters.
Funny thing is, when we were still building armies, Onvermel had his army, Zacta had his army, and my army was just characters in their armies.
Yeah, there was a lot more intermingling at this point.
Aw, don't worry, Ak. You finally got your own army established.
And that was another stage after the T.O.A. Once everyone
It's black and blue!
very black and blue. Like, so it's like once we
Well, black and orange is a better color.
I believe black and white with a bit of red highlights is a pretty good color, but we all know the purple's the best.
I think we can all agree that any color with black works.
Black is a good color.
But black and orange had so much personality.
So, but, with the mocs, like with, with the T.O.A, that started a whole thing about, we started creating more mythos around our characters, an actual. We was like, well, these are T.O.A. What islands are they from? Where they come from? Like, slowly but surely, these things.
What is their story?
Exactly. These things started trickling in slowly, a little bit after a little bit.
What is their goal? I still don't know.
So basically at this point, we all had our own T.O.A teams. Like, after a while, like, I had my full T.O.A team. I had a T.O.A of every element. Zach had a T.O.A of every element. Ek, I think at one point did. I'm not sure if you still do.
I think technically I'm still short 1 or 2.
12 light.
Well, T.O.A
I have a T.O.A of light.
He has
The T.O.A.
He is the T.O.A.
Oh yeah.
So
I had a bloody T.O.A of light first.
that is true. He did. Yeah, he did. Jard had it first. Sorry, Ek had it first. My apologies. I didn't want to dox you like that. But so once we also had T.O.A, then we were like, well, what islands are they from? And then what villains are they from? And it was also at this point, we started. Well,
Magnetism. That's what I'm still missing.
But as I was saying, once those are the same time that you all X stopped visiting on a weekly basis, a weekend basis. Theodore has moved out at this point, and we were being a little less intricate, and also we both had our big armies, like you and Orange and Black's army, I had the European army, but Ek wanted his own, so he built Bracken's army. Now this is a bit later down the line.
There was a major take apart of a lot of mocs that I had built, because at that time you had enough parts to build someone. You built someone.
You built as many someones as you can get, even if you had 2 limbs, 1 foot, no heads, and half a body.
There was many peg-legged people in the army at one point.
And 1-armed people.
But roughly the same time that we all had our own, essentially, army, at that point, we all had our armies, we all had the men in the army, but then the numbers of just random people started going down as we started building more T.O.A, more larger mocs, and more complex mocs. The amount of just generic random idiots just started going down. That also did go down because Ek and myself started trying to collect all the sets. So some sets we just pieced together, and then Ek also started selling sets on Bricklink.
Yeah, the piece together of sets. There was a bunch of sets that I had partials that I took them apart because they weren't complete, and then later on decided I've got enough parts I can actually build these sets now and maybe order the last few pieces off of Bricklink.
Yeah, so there's been so it basically came down to nowadays, like, where most with creations without characters almost don't exist anymore, and we rarely ever build it. Going back to the are we stagnant in creativity, like that idea, like we kind of stay. Bionicle, I would say we still have a decent amount of life because we still get some ideas, but like
I've stagnated a little bit.
not a little bit. You just need a little something to inspire. Like, don't get me wrong.
Or time.
2 years ago, you built a boat with a Jack Sparrow. That's like the opposite.
And when I'm not doing that, I'm building guys with rurus and swords.
And when he's not building Bionicles, he's building boats.
Let's be honest, Paul. Onvermel. Let's be honest, Onvermel.
Yes.
Him building a boat out of Bionicle is not breaking from stagnating. It's his stagnating spreading into the Bionicles.
True, and don't get...
Also, someone had challenged me because I had brought a lot of Bionicles and a lot of boats to a LEGO convention one year.
But I hadn't brought them together!
Exactly. And then I did.
Did you save a lot
That's
of
true.
car space with that one?
Ah!
Only bringing a Bionicle boat instead of both?
So, but it's like... You look at, like, the different eras. Like, also first, we weren't very... To be honest, like, compared to a lot of other kids I've seen, like, some, like, kids who are really into LEGO, we were not nearly as creative. Because I've seen, like, what's, like, some people, who's, like, kids or something, like, you see, like, what their kids built, and you're just like, those are some smart kids. Like, despite LEGO as our main focus is, like, kids, we weren't very creative with our building styles or techniques. We were very much, limb swapping? I'm happy.
It might have also been that we were quite content with the quote-unquote stories and lore given to us by the set or older brothers.
I mean, that's possibly true, too. But, like, I remember when I built Chains, because he had, like, the made-up, essentially, head. Or it was trying to make a made-up mask. and then I just made a head. And I remember feeling really proud about that. I'm like, this is top tier mocking right here.
This is
Um,
not average.
And I'm still happy about his head, but it's not like anything crazy anymore. But it's interesting. Like, it is interesting to see kind of like what drove us to build those old creatures. Like, also, it's like the sets were fun a bit enough, but sometimes, you just want to break them all down and make one giant army. Because unfortunately, when you have your sets built, you have an even amount of bad guys and good guys. In fact, you probably have more good guys than bad guys.
And Paraka are not going to work with Borak. Who'd do that?
That would be silly. So it was the same thing, but actually with system when we broke basically you made giant castle armies just so you actually had a larger bad guy army, which I very much am blaming Lord of the Rings for the desire to have a giant bad guy army. Because when you watch the return like of the Two Towers, that's the Battle of Helm's Deep, I would say, influenced our desire for grand scale armies more than really anything else did.
I was going to say our older brothers.
In my specific case, it's a little more secondhand Lord of the Rings because our older brothers were directly inspired by Lord of the Rings and the giant armies and tiny good guys, and I was inspired by them doing it.
Okay, look at this. They read the books, which made them want to do it, which inspired you. But I watched the movies, and that inspired me. So I was like, we were both inspired by the same thing, but through different means, essentially. But also as we become older, we don't play, right, gentlemen? We don't play with toys anymore.
No, not really.
No, that'd be silly.
No, I'm kind of more serious
No.
about this.
We're very serious. We're wearing ties and tux right now.
Oh, we don't play, but we do play with them.
No. But
I'd keep Lego out of the bedroom, but I kind of just Lego building and sleeping in the same room.
What's a bedroom? I just have 2 Lego rooms.
hey, so like soon you won't have them in the same room though.
It will be great.
For the most part, I don't have Lego in my room. But you look. But there was certain cases when we were younger where we weren't just trying to build giant armies. Like, at least for me specifically, when I built Dentar the first and second time, I had one single goal: to make the biggest Bionicle I can. Which
third time.
I'm talking about the first 2 times.
Okay.
Not talking about the newest one. But basically, the first 2 times were very much. I broke all I had to make the biggest Bionicles I could, and I actually have pictures of both these ones. The second one I think was about 3 feet. And then there was another time where I basically built a dragon. I didn't want to build a giant army. I just wanted to build a dragon.
It amuses me the second time you wanted to build the largest Bionicle, and yet you had yet to be even close to competing with anyone.
Well, I had to one up myself, I had to one up myself. Weirdly enough, though, I haven't actually been that height yet because the second Dentar was like about 3 feet. When I revamped Dentar, he was only 2'2". So I'm working on a 4 foot tall Dentar. So yes, I'm gonna make a little kid size. I want to make a 4 foot tall Bionicle. I'm working on it. It's just a work in progress, people. It takes a lot of time and money and parts to build something big.
You gotta keep him to the scale of William.
So William better not grow more than 4 foot tall.
He's a midget for life.
No, he's just a kid.
No, he should be a midget for life.
We apologize if we are wishing your child to stay short forever.
Only if he stays young and adorable forever. We'll lift that shortness.
He won't stay young forever. I guarantee you that. He definitely won't stay young forever.
Way to stay optimistic,
But,
Scoob.
there's definitely been a lot of really interesting. Weirdly enough, actually, one of the most memorable creations that I can remember from all the made-ups was the bunk beds. See, Zacta had his XLR T9. It was like the first made-up he built after he got that set. And all those red panel pieces from the large vehicle, we didn't know what to do with. So he just made a bunch of bunk beds. And then the men of the army just slept on them.
By a bunch, like 2.
This is the age where we weren't really playing with toys, but we were just goofing off, fiddling with them, let's be honest. It was less about playing Grand Wars, and just more like, I don't know, this character's going to take a nap on the bed.
It was the whole army was going to just snooze.
That was also like one of the last bunch made-ups where I remember all 3 of us breaking all at the same time to make because essentially we all built a member of the 6. I built Brune, Ek built Nor, and then you built the rest.
And
the rest.
Well, they were kind of Zacta's characters.
Island.
They were kind of Zacta's characters to begin with.
Well, he created them, but I was the first one to make Brune, so kind of.
And yet, Brune and Nor I had never made my own copies of until bunch of parts became in a until probably we had as much scraps
Until
as
he
we
had
had
enough
normal sets.
brown. You know, that's true. I do still have a Brune. Although
That's right.
I haven't broken him yet. I don't think I will, but I really do need to update him because every time I try updating him, he gets worse. So I don't
My
know what I'm doing
Nor
wrong.
is long dead.
Oh, it's
Well,
very
yeah,
sad.
When did that happen?
I
Other
don't
than
know.
long ago.
So, where was I going with that one? Oh yeah, the bunk beds. Yeah, like despite its bunk beds being some of the simplest creations, being one of the most memorable, but it was also just showed that we didn't have much variety when we built. So when we built something as weird as unique as a bunk bed. But no, also, guys, I almost forgot about one of the most interesting mocks that creations we ever built as kids. Guys, remember the 6-piece things, right?
You mean my original creations?
Well, you trendsetted that.
I helped you build some of those.
But they were my parts.
Basically, when we got to this leftover parts near the end, it was fun to just try building something out of 6 pieces. We made a rule of 6 pieces, no more, no less.
There must only ever be 6. Though not gonna lie, it's sad when looking back on a lot of the creations. I have pictures. I'm like, I like that. Oh wait, Gerard built. Sorry, Eck built that one. I like that. Oh wait, Eck did that one too. Oh wait, Eck did that one too. When I broke my Bionicles, it was like a group event.
I can definitely say that Eck, back in the day, did have the most creative mind when it came down to unique building.
That helps that I'm the oldest.
Says who? You got no proof of that.
And one of them has been recreated in my own build. A certain one-legged, one-eyed, maybe two-armed, skocky fish pirate thing.
See, I could just edit this
A
podcast
pirate,
so no one
go
knows that you're
figure.
the oldest. Except most of the people who listen to this podcast already know us. So it'd be kind of hard to actually retcon that. So for that 1 or 2 people who don't know this, yes.
Edit video? What's that?
Oh, I edit videos. I just don't trim
I think it's for
anything.
the bleep.
I don't bleep. I know I did bleep one time.
Yeah, you bleep their location.
I did.
Keep yourselves incognito.
You know, I felt like I'd be nice.
You ought to be like erasing our names or something, like cutting that little bit out when one of you slips up saying a name.
We know who we're talking
I
about.
want to be bleeped. I like bleeping.
But it takes a lot more work to bleep on time. Okay, I only spend like an hour editing videos. I don't want to spend more.
Understandable.
Got a long weekend.
But
Maybe.
no, it's like, yeah, no, it's like Bionicles had some very distinctive eras that we've tried mocking with, and definitely right now seems to be a little bit of a stagnant rut. But I'm like, once we get some more inspiration, because like there was a good 2-year period where I was just trying to make all the themes of system space into a Bionicle, which lasted for a good about 2 years, and also I still need to build my next Dentar, which I started with his legs and got a basic frame to his body, got his head kind of worked out, got one hand mostly figured out, but his parts is just a big thing right now, and just I had to clear off the building table. But it's like, so I have plans, to build him. I still would like to redo the dragon, actually redo Heraclic. I have, and even like some of my other T.O.A, I wouldn't mind just tinker around a little bit. And I do need to make Yellowfy one of the Hanatu mocks of mine. What about you, Ek? Do you have any mock plans right now that you have? Anything?
I've got some Rurus that need some bodies and swords, I guess.
See, he says he's not that he's kind of stuck in a rut, but you do want to build a tree out of the old boat parts.
I have lots of brown.
So he wants to build like a tree using Bionicle limbs, which
I keep forgetting about that half the time, but yeah, I do want to build a tree.
he wants to build a tree. How admirable. He wants to save the planet by building a tree.
Out of plastic.
Yes. We will save the world.
With plastic.
It sounds a little backwards when you think about it.
Oh, look at this way. We're reusing the plastic we've had for years. This is called recycling, gentlemen. It's recycling.
I'm making a tree out of a boat! Yeah, that's definitely working backwards.
That's very much working backwards. Well, what about you, Zach? Do you have any, like, different unique mocks that you want to work on when it comes to Bionicle?
Well, I am overdue for an upgraded Skokti design, and I have a Iron Man-esque type suit that I want to improve upon.
Okay, so see, we have ideas, gentlemen. We
And
got
to know
ideas.
how people to finish.
I mean, also, it definitely, like, right now, it's like, also, like, we build more characters, so we break less, and we just can't keep the characters we have built now, so also we're not going to be building much. But
Yeah, we tend to build a character and like, I like this guy. You're never going anywhere ever again.
Do you know the kind of funny thing is? When I think about, like, oh, I don't have a big army anymore. If I just take out all my Urapin, They actually are a pretty big army now, despite them
Ha,
themselves.
you think that's a big army? I've got probably somewhere in the 80 plus Toa.
Yeah, well, I got like, I think, 50, nearing 50 Toa.
It's funny how some of
Depending on
our
what you include.
characters are pretty crappy builds because they've been around for so long, but we just don't have the heart to take them apart because we like their character too much.
Who are you referring to?
Well, I can think of a few rebels and
Orange
Orange
and
and
Black.
Black.
Orange and Black.
Yeah, like people from their army specifically.
Even though it's
See,
dwindled.
the thing about Orange and Black is, he's so iconic in our like Bionicle childishhood that like he's a simple mock that like we can't like you could try making a revamped updated version, but it wouldn't be Orange and Black. You
He
can't
just wouldn't
change it.
have the same simple charm. Orange and Black genuinely feels like the alternate model of Pohadu kind of concept, like a creation that came out of a canister.
See, the way I would describe Orange and Black as, okay, this is gonna sound like a really weird analogy, but think Land Before Time. You can't update it in any way. You can't make a new edgy Land Before Time. No, it has to be like cute, like kind of cutesy. Like you can't go like making like teenage Land Before Time with lasers and rock boosters. It doesn't
Very
work.
dark and disturbing at the same time.
You can't just make like a CG basically like the Lion King. You can't do that for Lion King. No, you have to kind of keep it like children, animation. It's
children
so iconic you can't change. Orange Black is a simple, kind of cartoonish villain. You can't really change that.
And let's be honest, before Orange or Black, I had like a handful of parts, enough to make maybe if I stretched it and creatively 3 creations. So Orange or Black is essentially pretty much the very big. He is the beginning of an era of made ups. Even though I have a creation that's technically older, even though it's I think completely been turned from white into black.
See, the thing about that is like you had about 3 creations. Eck had about you had BWB, Hockey Puck for you, and Vlad. And then at that point,
Don't forget Ed the Roshki.
Oh yes, Ed the Roxy. At this point, I had Defron, who I still have. You can see a picture of him here. This may or may not be an accurate updated picture, depending if I'm lazy enough to take a picture of him currently, or I'll just use an older one. Mostly looks the same, and he hasn't changed all that much. But at that point, I was like, I technically could build 3 creations when you've gone when you're black, but I traded like parts to make a figure to get my first galley from a friend of mine, and then I think I just didn't have enough. I always tried building another thing, but once I got more parts from another bunch of pieces, that's when the Urapin army and Zakrok basically arose, and that basically was officially when I got my army, and then shortly after that started T.O.A. And then the snowball went on. But definitely getting just loose Bionicles and things like we didn't go out of our way to get them. We just kind of got them from mom, and we like our mom, and we just kind of because you got like a bucket, like kind of a small little bucket for Christmas.
Yeah.
I had just gone like a couple Bionicles from like a Valley Village, and then X basically start of getting Bionicle mocs was actually just an extra Makuta. Basically, an extra Makuta and Hydruka, and boom, you have Ed and then Vlad.
The Hydruka wasn't extra. I just decided I don't need a Hydruka, so I'm going to take it apart, take this Makuta, and make a Shadow Roshki. And the leftover parts became this guy named Vlad.
Vlad is still there. He has not gone anywhere.
A lot has changed about this Vlad character.
Like everything.
His head's still the same mask, and that's about it.
Man, don't you know, George, this way you give him a full 4-hole Kukon, so everything's different. I think the claw might still be the original.
That actually is true. That is probably still
Same
his
with the
original
dark gray
claw.
gun. Like that.
Yeah, probably. Gunny.
There's a couple things on that mock that probably have not changed for like almost 10 years. 9/11. 9/11.
9/11. But like with Vlad, he's like right there with
Sorry,
Orange
I
and
had to.
Black. He is like honestly, like you think about it, that gun and his personality was kind of some cornerstones of some games. The destruction of the Great Temple. I think he destroyed an island to transport everyone away.
Yes. The way that character gun starts right, he pointed to the ground, the whole army was on the side, he blew up the island, all the army flew in the air and landed on a different island.
The Grun grew bigger and bigger over time.
Just remember, before
It was a
traveling,
tank,
do
basically,
you
at the
have
end.
your traveling buddy?
Basically, at the end, it was a tank. That was definitely the phase where we were too old to be playing with toys, but we still wanted to play with toys, and therefore things got ludicrous. We were still playing with toys after that. I will not say how old and we were at any of these given times. No one can do the math. Maybe our older bros.
We never had a dark age. Let's put it that way.
That's true. So
We've only started coming to a point where we think we're reaching a mature level of adulthood.
speak for yourself. I'm never gonna be mature.
I don't know the meaning of the word.
Actually, not gonna be mature, but actually,
I really should figure it out. I'm getting married soon.
Yeah, that might be useful. That might be useful. But yeah, no. We've had a lot of different areas of Bionicle creations and mocks, and it's definitely been really fun to look back. Like, I wish I had more pictures of my older stuff. I'm definitely going to get you guys to probably try to send me like as much of your old Bionicle pictures you guys can.
It's all on Brickshelf.
Is all of yours on Bookshelf, like, and everything?
All my old crappy stuff? Yep.
And all your basically new current stuff's on Flickr.
Yep.
Okay, so
Unless there's a very specific mock that we talked about that I don't have pictures of, which I don't believe there's a case, you should be fine finding my stuff.
yes, he does.
On my computer, but that one might not be on the internet actually.
You might have an updated one of Flickr because you basically took pictures of everyone and put them on Flickr.
I took pictures of everyone, but I don't think all of them
Okay.
made it to Flickr.
The point being,
Just link to my
just try to get as much comments. But what I am going to do actually for maybe the couple viewers who are curious about this, David, you specifically, I'm calling you out again because the other two are brothers.
Name at this point.
Dave.
Yes.
Who
Dave.
says that's his name? You know, I'm actually going to link our Flickr pages because we all have a Flickr and we all have Bionicle on it. So I'm going to link those specifically to the Bionicle section and even Brickshelf I might
Hell
link.
yeah.
Just for people to take a look at some of these, creations that we built, some of the old ones. Like the Brickshelf will be the older stuff for you people, and the Flickr will be the newest stuff. And
I have T.O.A on there.
hey, still, you said you've cornered the market on T.O.A, and there they are. So yeah, no, I'll link that. And thanks for everybody for listening. If anyone made it this far, I'm sure at least 2 people did. I'm pretty sure Hal won, and our dearly beloved David did.
And I do. Gotta keep the ratings up.
Yes, I might. Sometimes I listen back to the podcast just to make sure everything sounded good. Because there's something when I'm editing, I'm not paying that much attention, to be honest. So, yeah, no, thanks for listening, guys. It's been a slice. If you like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell in case we ever, we don't have merch.
We need to get on.
You're gonna say this until we have merch, and then you'll stop saying we're never having merch.
That's why I keep saying
Not
it.
unless, okay, tell you what, if we can get to over to 1,000 of subscribers, we will have merch. Okay, I'm saying this. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I will find a way to have merch, even if it's just me scribbling on a shirt.
Just link to George Brickling's site. Voila, merch.
We'll sell custom items as scribbled shirts.
It's closed at the moment.
Yes, COVID. Oh, actually, that's not even COVID. But thanks everybody listening. Thank you, bros. Thank you, brothers. And this has been the T.O.A Podcast on the Onvermel Report. I've been your host, Onvermel, and we are retiring from the night.